Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. We are here for episode 10 of season 3 of Writerly Conversations. And since it is NaNoWriMo, we are bringing you a semi-writerly, slightly readerly conversation. We're going to be talking about his levels to this. And so, anyways. CPs, alphas, and betas. But before we get into that, I'll let my lovely co-host introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Britt. This is my channel. My channel is Britt Riderly. We're currently on Shea with the Hobbies. Location, Shea with the Hobbies. My channel is a book and author too, where I talk about the intersections of literature and culture, mostly through conversations not conversations like this. This is super writerly, but through the Writerly Conversations collab, we do get into like literature, culture, the effect of that on publishing, particularly TriPub, but also ways that like Indie Pub tries to like push against that in some ways, or just like go in its own direction. So other than Writerly Conversations, I also do my Friday morning reading sprints from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And fair warning, we could be there and we could knock out 3 sprints, rare, or we could even do 2. But people that come to Friday seem perfectly happy to do a smooth 1 of whatever sort of productivity they're into, and then for the rest of the time we'll be talking about literature and culture, and they into it. Without fail, when we're talking for more than like 20 minutes, the numbers start going up, and I'm just like, what is YouTube pushing it because I'm talking more? I don't understand, but it happens without fail. Whenever I only do 1 sprint and I just go off on a tangent, people in the comments suggest Twitter fingers. More people start coming in, like, what are we talking about? Reading sprints. Oh, okay. 15 minutes later, they enter the conversation also. So anyway, that's what we do over at my place. I'm sitting on a couch. So like over on my couch, that's what we do. Anyway, back to today's business.
Yeah, she's silly. Okay, so we have done conversations similar to these in the past, but we haven't went in depth in a while. And last month we did So You Want to Be a Beta Reader. So we really went in depth into a beta reader and what that is, what that entails, what you should be looking for if you are trying to be a beta reader. We kind of tapped into a little bit of what you should be doing as a writer, but we really focused on the reader reviewer aspect of it. And so today we're going to be talking about the different spaces of reading as you're writing, from both perspectives. So like what those entail, but also like as a writer, what you should kind of like be thinking about when you are looking to engage those readers at those different points in times. So first off, CPs, critique partners. As you guys know, me and Britt are critique partners, and we talked about this. Critique partners are usually 2 writers who are in the drafting phase. They usually have skills that they can learn from each other on, places in which one is stronger than the other and vice versa, in which they can have like an iron sharpening iron relationship and can grow together. And usually you guys are sharing like current works in progress with each other to get feedback and things like that. Britt, do you have anything that you want to add about critique partners? Okay. So that one is pretty like, that's not necessarily any kind of like ambiguous one. And we did a very, very good in-depth conversation about critique partners. We always talk about our Black Love being one of our most viewed ones. Our critique partners is also one of our most viewed conversations because it really went in depth and people were really wanting to know more about that. So that will also be linked in the description box below, so you can go and get a like one-on-one conversation about that. The one thing to remember about critique partners is this is the one relationship that is probably the most close. This is probably the one that I personally would not advise you to have a critique partner that you are not at the very least friendly with. that you don't have some type of genuine relationship with, not just working, because there are going to be things that they need to know about you. They need to understand about you, your moods, how you work, how you are as a writer. We talked about this even in Riley Conversations, just how me and Britt know each other well enough that we can be like, hey, I know you didn't say that you was having a hard time doing this right now, but we should probably, don't worry about reading this for me, because something going on. I know something going on. Just handle what you got going. Don't trip about it. Or, hey, I can tell this feedback kind of rubbed you the wrong way. I didn't mean for it to. Let's talk about what's going on. How did you receive what I said? Because I don't think it came off like I wanted it to, or whatever the case. That is most important in that relationship, especially because you are showing this person the most raw and unedited parts of your story. And because of this, you want it to be someone that you trust. Not to say that, you know, people are untrustworthy, but people can be untrustworthy, and you don't want your baby to be stolen, or, you know, somebody come out with a story and it'd be like, dang, that was super similar to this story I had that only 3 people knew about. You know, so that's kind of there with the critique partner. Now, alpha readers is a little bit different. It still, in my opinion, should be a pretty, you should know them. They shouldn't be strangers, in my opinion, because again, an alpha reader, for me, an alpha reader comes before an editor. An alpha reader usually comes for me either after draft 1 or draft 2. So I haven't gotten into the 3rd draft. I haven't gotten into a bunch of rewriting. So it is still a fairly new story. It is still fairly in the beginning stages. And again, it's my baby. I'm not trusting it to just anybody. An alpha reader is still at that very beginning for me.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is an alpha reader can be one of your critique partners, right? So like I have 4 critique partners. Not all of them. So like one of my critique partners, he only writes fantasy, right? So I wouldn't ask him to be the CP that's really closely reading hashtag first romance, because he's super duper in fantasy. I have a critique partner who has an MA, like Shingai, right? Like who I did an author interview for her novella and It's How to Stay Alive. Shingai has an MFA in literary arts. She writes speculative fiction, but I know she's read widely enough to give feedback on my writing, no matter the genre, and to be like cognizant of the genre as she's writing. So I would have Shingai do like an alpha, and maybe have Shay, who I know is like under coercion, read a lot of romance because of like Between Me and Deirdre, right? So like Shay might be the CP that I'm really working with very closely for hashtag first romance, and then I might have Shingai alpha read it when I'm done with a couple of drafts, and I'm like, okay, I'm very comfortable with what it's becoming. I want to get some feedback from someone who's not Shay, because you know, Shay may have read a couple of versions of it and not really be seeing straight anymore. I want to get another person, not quite a beta, but I just want to get someone to see like how it is now. Can I keep polishing this version? Or are there things where you're like, before you like set the cement, I would check out this one thing that's going on that's not really hitting, right? So an alpha reader can be one of your critique partners, especially if you have multiple, and especially if you have CPs that have some overlapping and some varying specialties and focuses in their genre and in their writing. Because again, you want them to be people who are closer to you than a beta, as we talked about last month. You do a call for a beta, you may never have met them. You do your research on them, you figure out if you like their review style, blah, blah, blah. But with an alpha, since they're closer, if you have multiple CPs anyway, if you can, right? Like if they have enough of a knowledge of the genre, or if they just have some particular insight that you know you want, it makes sense for a CP who's not working as closely on the project to alpha read for it also. Or if it's a CP who's like, I'm too busy to really, really engage with you as a CP, but if you have 3 questions you want me to answer, I can go through it for those 3 questions and answer those 3 questions very specifically. I can't do anything else, right? That's also a way to use CPs as an alpha if they have like constrained capacity in the moment.
I would definitely agree. I definitely stagger between, there are CPs that I'll have read certain things off top, and then I will use them as secondary readers, alpha readers for something else, because I know that, like, specifically, I know I need their type of feedback before I can get to this second draft. So I know I need them to critique it, and I want them to critique it. And I know that these other critique partners, I need them to alpha read it. Also, as using critique partners as both as critique partners or alpha readers also depends on your relationship and the fact that they're working on projects, right? So that also could be that, hey, I know right now I can't afford, neither one of us can afford for you to be able to critique this how we know that you're capable of critiquing it and how I would like for you to critique it. So let me let you alpha read it and have someone else critique it. Like, there, say this all the time, you have to know yourself, but you also, we talked about this as a critique partner, you have to know your critique partner. So you have to know, like, what is it that they're capable of doing, what are their strong points, and where in which can you utilize them best. Because the thing is it's not, we get into this thing, like, in general, as people, that like using people is bad, and that's not really true, because we all use people in different ways. It's misusing and abusing people that is wrong. You have these people in your, what's the word, in your arsenal as a writer for a reason. So use them effectively in the places in which they are most effective. And that takes, like, realizing, hey, their skills fit this, what I need them to do for this story. And that is going to change based off of what you're writing. That's not always going to be the same, right? Like, I am just now getting to the point where I read fantasy a lot more. And that's been because my critique partner writes fantasy. So because of her, I've been engaging in fantasy stories more than before. Because me personally, y'all know me, I be in the real world. Contemporaries be my stories. That's where I'm at, right? But I have to take into account that if I want to be an effective critique partner, if I want to be an effective alpha reader, if I want to be an effective beta reader, I have to be well versed in the genre that I want to be in, right? So that's a part of, as the reader, making sure that you're doing what it takes to be qualified to have whatever title you're choosing to go after.
I really liked what you were saying last month about like the different ways that betas can be structured, and I think that it's appropriate to bring some of that structure into alpha reading. Like, critique partners, I kind of just give it to them. And also because, like, at least not in the beginning, I don't, like, I used to, I don't know that I've done this in a long while, but I used to just give, especially like the critique partners that I met when I did the We Need Diverse books. We gave each other chapters, parts of the books. Okay, I'm done with part 1. It's 5 chapters. Here you go. Right. So I don't really need to tell you what I'm looking for in those 5 chapters. You're just like reading it and just staying up to the story and giving me what's coming to you as a CP who's looking at something in progress. Like, it's not even a full draft. But for an alpha who's getting a full book and who has, if you're using a CP who has less time, please direct my focus. What am I looking for? What are you concerned might not need to make it into the next draft? Like, giving the alphas some direction is helpful for you as the writer to think about, am I unsure about anything? Or am I like, I'm actually super confident about it, and I do just want to see what jumps out at you. Okay, then if you say that, then as long as you're truly okay with hearing only what jumps out at them, perfectly fine. But giving the alphas direction, I kind of see it as like a spot check. Like, I don't need your comments on everything, because everything is a lot. But I'm really concerned about flow, or like this scene, I feel like I'm not getting it quite right. It's bugging me. Again, especially if you're doing an alpha reader who's a CP, they can give you that sort of writerly advice. You have to know the expertise of your alphas. If you're using an alpha where it's basically an early beta, asking them writerly questions, you might have to ask that question a little bit differently. But I would definitely say ask your alphas specific questions, because the book is also rougher. So they might be overlooking things like typos and like confusing sentence structures that haven't been cleaned up in final edit, like those sorts of things. So the book is like, the house ain't super clean. So like direct their steps so that they like can, through the sentences, through the typos, be looking at something very specific to focus them among what could be a chaotic draft. That's what I would say about alphas.
I concur. I'll actually like follow that up with in general, I suggest just instructions, period. Right. Like even when me and Britt are talking, like when we're getting ready, like she'll be like, hey, don't worry about typos. I just need this, even when it's a critique. Right. Because when you don't know, right, and you're not aware, when you're critiquing something, it's hard for me to ignore typos or ignore things like that. Or she'll be like, oh, I switched tenses. So if you catch instances where the tenses aren't right, like go ahead and say something in those moments, because I thought that I've caught it all, so I might not, right? Like in those moments, instructions are okay. As a writer, do not feel like you can't instruct someone what to do with your work. That is important, right? As a reader, be willing to abide by those instructions. Be willing, like, no, hey, this is a job that I am signing up for. I am agreeing to do. I need to be willing to stay within these parameters and do what I'm asked to do, right? These things are important for both of you guys, right? Because if you don't give your expectations for what you want and what you're looking for, you're bound to get whatever. And that could be good or bad, right? You might get a super in-depth critique that you were not mentally ready for. And let me tell you, a super in-depth critique that is analyzing a bunch of things that you are not mentally ready for can set you back as a writer if you are not ready to hear that feedback. So you have to get into a space where you're like, hey, this is what I know that I need. I already know these things are already going to have to be handled later on. I know the romance isn't where it needs to be. I'm not looking for you to look at the romance. I need you to tell me if the mystery is right. I need you to tell me if the antagonist is right. I need you to tell me if the tension is right. Hey, how was the dialogue? Be specific as a writer. Be specific as the reader. These things are both important for both of you guys, because again, like we said last month, like y'all both are going to be known for this, right? You're going to be known. Reviewers are going to talk about, I wouldn't beta read for her. I wouldn't beta read for him. I didn't like it. It wasn't the best experience.
And I have heard that. So I have heard that, them being like, the author was like responding to all of my feedback super meanly, like trying to arbitrate every note I gave them and justify why they made that choice. Like it just became combative. Like I have heard that before. So something for writers to know, how you treat your alphas matters. Like, I mean, especially if they're not your CPs, obviously you're not going to be street your friends, hopefully. But as far as when you're working with alphas, if you don't know them, if you're working with betas, you don't know them, you still need to treat them right, even if they're not your friends. Because just like you, as a writer, talk to writer colleagues and say, I would have used this person, they didn't abide by my guidelines, they X, Y, and Z, they didn't finish it, or blah, blah, blah. Readers talk also. Like, obviously, we've seen, like, there are bookish communities that exclusively talk about author's business, and this author said that, this, that, and the third, or whatever. So like, everyone needs to treat everyone well. Everyone needs to treat everyone well, because both parties have a fair amount of power to report on someone's behavior and like ruin their reputation. So let's be kind out here.
No, I totally agree. I think that like we've talked about this like in other conversations that we've had, reputation does matter. And you will build a reputation in this space based off of how you treat people when you are choosing to ask them to help you and when you are choosing to say that you're going to help someone. Like these are things that you need to be aware of in this situation. With that, when we talk about beta readers, I feel like beta readers, as far as the emotional kind of toll that all of the 3 levels have, is probably like the least emotional one, as far as like, because it's usually strangers. You can have friends or people that you know kind of know or acquaintance with be beta readers, but truthfully I believe more effective beta readers are people that you don't know very well, because they're not trying to hype you up, right? They're not going to give you an inflated sense of, oh, well, I love everything you write, right? Because the truth is generally, like, I hardly ever dislike anything my CPs write. Like, truthfully, like, they're really good writers and I like the stories. Even if they have a character that gets on my everlasting nerves, I like the stories because they are really good storytellers. A beta reader is not necessarily going to be inclined to feel that same way. So, you know, like there is a slight bias, right? There is a slight bias because I'm very rarely going to write something I don't like. But also, if you do, I'm definitely going to tell you without missing any words. And be like, girl, this character is crazy. I need you to do something about this, right? But with beta readers, there isn't that closeness, right? So you don't necessarily have to worry about hurting this person's feelings in the same way, or getting your feelings hurt by this person in the same way. And I feel like it allows for there to be, I feel like there should always be honest feedback. Personally, you should never be holding back. But I feel like it allows for a window of more honest and diverse feedback, because you have people from all walks of life, all types of backgrounds, all different types of things. These aren't necessarily a group of people that you specifically handpicked and curated to read your story, right? So it offers you some diversity. But in that, I feel like personally, the beta reader phase as a writer needs to be the one where you have your questions like specific to a T. It's the one that nothing should be left up to interpretation. Nothing should be left up to, oh, we can have a phone call about this later, or we can do a video chat about this. And if I have more questions, I can get more in-depth answers later. Like, I feel like when it comes to, as a writer, choosing beta readers, this is the one where you need to be on your P's and Q's. You need to be ready for this. You need to know, hey, I am looking for beta readers. These are the qualities I want them to have. These are the things that I want them to be able to do. These are the questions I want them to be able to answer. This is the time limit I want them to be able to do it on. These things are fixed. They're not moving. They're not, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just.
Yeah, no, you are.
Okay.
You are. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, girl. Yeah, you got it.
Listen, I totally agree with what Shay is saying. I will also say I absolutely did the opposite with my first time doing betas, but that was primarily because I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just like, okay, well, let me tap a few people who I know read romance and then just make it happen, whatever. Because I was working on my own deadlines. So like I said last month, when Deidre gave me that substantial feedback, she was like, if you want to have a phone call, we can. So if you know the betas, that's fine. But I totally agree, optimally, that wouldn't be necessary because enough information and questions have been given that they're able to very specifically, and again, like you looked at their reviews, so you know that they're good articulators. enough questions would have been given with enough specificity, and they are able to answer those questions specifically enough to answer all questions you would have about it. Does that mean that you're never going to want to follow up with the beta reader? Of course not. Things happen. And even had I asked very specific questions, it wouldn't have occurred to me to ask the thing that Deidre was speaking to, and I still would have wanted to follow up with her, right? So like, it's not that you're going to catch everything, but do your best to do that. And I mean, I think this is where critique partners can help you curate those questions. If you're like, here's a list of questions that I have, did I get it all? Is there something else I should be asking? Run the list by your, like, that is the smallest document your CPs will ever read. I think it'll be fine for them to like go through and be like, oh, maybe ask about X, X, and X also. If you have a writer colleague who you know has betas often, ask them like, what do you do? Like, can I see your forum, or can you walk me through like what forums you post this stuff on? Like, ask your colleagues questions also, because I don't know that any of my critique partners that I have now use betas. So even if I asked them, they would necessarily know. I mean, Shay would know, but the other three, like Shingai's Rose publication was completely different. So that wouldn't have necessarily given me an information, but you can ask them, do you think these questions cover all the things that I should be considering in this final stage of review, at least before an editor, which, you know, it's different. Editors will catch, hopefully, everything with an asterisk. So this is your last time to get reader feedback, and the person or persons, be it CP or CP Alpha, whoever, they're in a good position to supplement that list with any other things that they think you should be attentive to.
And good question, along with what Britt was saying, are they willing to have outside conversations with you if there is need to follow up? Hey, are you willing to hop on a Zoom call or a phone? Like, that's the number one for me as a CP. If you're not willing to be able to meet with me, I'm usually not even going to allow you to be my critique partner, for me personally, let alone like, because I need that capability for me personally. What is it, like 75% of communication is body language, is nonverbal?
It's more than that. Yeah.
I was like it's a huge number. It's nonverbal.
Yeah.
So like, off top, I need that to feel like I'm truly understanding how you're engaging with the content. So having that as your questions when you are putting your call out to beta readers is a valid question. They may say no, they may say not, but that allows you to be able to pick from this group better, because you know what you can and can't allow. You know what I mean? I definitely think that the only reason I have a better understanding of being a beta reader is because I chose to be one, right? Because I haven't used them yet. I've only used critique partners and alpha readers, and I have interchangeably used my critique partners as alpha readers, and I think maybe like 5 other people in my life have been alpha readers, and those have been like my close friends. Like, hey, I know you would be willing to read whatever I write, and I know you were an English major and so I know y'all will pick up other stuff too. So I'll go ahead. My friends can read it, right? Because I know that they'll support and everything. But beta reading, like, again, it's a different mindset. It's a different thought process. It's not this person is close to me. It's like, I don't necessarily want this person to be close to me. I want this person to be close to the type of story I'm writing. I want that more than anything. I want them to be invested in, like, no, I want to see another good thriller come out. I want to see another good horror come out. So if they're invested in that, then I know they're going to do well in being a beta reader, because they want to see me be a success, right? That's important. I think that the only other thing that I can think of as far as this topic goes is, don't be in a rush to get to any of these levels of people. Like, don't be in a rush to like, oh, I got to get this to beta readers because you done finished the second draft. Like, no, not at all. Not at all. Like, take your time. Like, getting to beta readers shouldn't be like, oh, now the story is just ready because I'm ready to throw it in the hands of these other people. Like, stories take time. And there needs to be like real evaluation as you're going through and editing your story and taking in the feedback, because you are going to be taking in feedback from a lot of different areas. And as a writer, you need to be able to have the ability to know which feedback to accept and which feedback to go ahead and let fall by the wayside. You need to be able to understand and take that. And as a writer, I'm not going to hold you. I do think if you have forms for your beta readers to fill out, you know, Google allows for forms to have at the end, you can have like the graph of how people fill things out. Data can help you a lot. Can help you a lot. If you have a lot of yes or no questions for your story and you find out that you thought you had set this story up to where everybody should know that this person is the bad guy and everybody thinks that this person is a great person and that's not what you wanted them to think, you have that right there in black and white. So I'm just a huge proponent of using forms to help you out because that data can truly work wonders. But in this process, take your time. Don't rush, right? Because again, I've put out, 2 stories, working on some more, and I've not used beta readers yet. It's not that it has to be done. It's not that it's these required things. But if you're going to do it, take your time. Don't just do things because everybody else is doing them. Don't just use the term because everybody else is using the term. Take time to understand what it requires and what it needs and what you need, what your story needs, right? The help that you need for your story, right? Did you get everything you could out of your critique partners and your alpha readers? If you didn't, what do you need from your beta readers? What do you need them to point out to you? What are you looking for from them that you didn't get from the first 2 different groups of readers? What are you expecting to be different, right? Like these are all, again, said it like, count up that cost. Think about these things. Don't just jump into them, right? Because I've seen in this YouTube space where people are putting out calls to beta readers because they finished the book, and that's what other people on YouTube have done. And I've just watched videos where that's just not their beta reading experience as a writer, was not what they hoped it to be. It was not what they wanted it to be. And we just want to encourage everybody to have the best experience they can. Not to say you won't have missteps, not to say you won't have mistakes, not to say things won't happen, but it's, if you can avoid them, then let's avoid them, right?
So we hope that this has been helpful to y'all to think about what is the difference between critique partners, alphas, and betas, and to really keep all these things in mind for each project, because not every project that I write needs CPs, alphas, and betas. It just doesn't, because the stronger my CPs are, the less chance I am to go for alphas. Like when, I'm very comfortable with this form of storytelling. My CPs are very strong with it. We've gone through it several times. I think I'm good. I'm just going to do betas and then to an editor, right? That's fine. That is fine. And if you're just like, I'm not, I don't want to do betas, I'm just going to get an editor who is super strong in this genre. Okay. If that's your choice, that's your choice. I would make sure that your critique partner core is super strong in that genre style of storytelling if you're going to make that choice. But like Shay said, every story does not require every one of these levels. But you should not, and I'm saying this and convicting myself, you should not make a decision based off of how many of these levels you're going to, based off of a preconceived timeline. The story takes what it takes. And you don't want to rush to put out mess. So that takes discipline and humility and communication with other people who you may have already like forged agreements with or whatever. And, you know, we have to earn our agreements. That might also mean that after the agreement's done, you got to step back and do some other things though. But like, try to make deadlines after you have gone through the like hard deadlines with other people, after you have gone through these levels, so you're sure it'll be ready, because you never know what will be said that you actually want to honor and how much time it'll take.
Yeah, something when you said that, I was like, because you never know. You might think you don't need these, and then your critique partners read it, and then you're like, oh, I might need some extra eyes on this because what they said just drastically changed the story. So now I need more people to look at this because I need more experience. Like, you just never know. And putting expectations on yourself before you've even let other eyes see it can put you in a bad mental space. Because then if you have plans and your plans aren't going, you know what they say, you want to make God laugh, tell them about your plans, because bruh, like, it would truly, truly stress you out. And here in these writerly conversations, the number one thing we're trying to do is make sure that we are helping you guys with things that we have learned along the way. Things that have brought us undue stress in the time that we have been learning them. And grandma always said there's two ways to learn a lesson: by going through it or watching somebody else go through it. So here you go. You could just not struggle and just watch this video and just learn. I'm just saying. All right, y'all. Well, that's all we got for y'all today. We'll see y'all next month for our last episode of the season. I cannot believe we are about to be 3 full years into this. Oh my gosh. Now my eyes getting a little watery. We've been doing this for 3 years. Yo. Yeah. This is one of my favorite collaborations by far. And just like thinking about, like, because at the end of the year we go back and watch and like review. So I'm already like, oh my gosh. Anyways, y'all. So I'm really like, okay. Anyways, all right. So okay, y'all. Thank y'all for watching this video. We're gonna see y'all next month. We on my channel. So on Britt's channel next time, we're gonna see y'all on Britt's channel for the last video of the season. Y'all have a great rest of y'all NaNoWriMo. Get all those words in. Comment prop. Let us know which one of the levels you are currently on as a writer. Like if you are engaging with CPs or alpha readers or betas. If you are a reader, let us know which level you thrive at. Do you thrive at being an alpha reader? Do you thrive at being a beta reader? Where are you at? And let's just keep the conversation going in the comments. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.